Now, many of us in HEMA, we're very much used to pulling out the sword and fighting our opponents. But when it comes to medieval combat, knowing how to use the sword is only really half the battle. Today, we're going to be looking about how to test both your edge and your cutting ability. Let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're looking at one of the most important aspects of HEMA. We're going to be talking about the tatami mat, how to roll it, and stay towards the end. And I'll tell you how I prepare mine. All right, so first let's talk about what the tatami mat is. This mat is made out of Japanese long grass reeds. It was used historically by Japanese people to test their katanas. It's also a good way to practice your focus is learning how to roll these. So we're going to start with that. Now this tatami mat I've had rolled for probably about a year. I just found it. In fact, I found a large stash of all of my tatami mats. So we're going to start as if it's brand new. Now your tatami mats, they can go all different shapes and sizes. This one is about the size, the height of a person. So we're going to start this over here so you guys can see it. First thing that you want to do is design your ends. This is just about as tall as I am. We're going to set that down right here. Now we're going to fold it in half first off, but we're not going to fold it in half exactly in half. So what we're going to do is take the edge that's the most frayed, which is usually the edge that's cut. We're going to take that all the way up, just about a hand breadth on the end. That's going to allow us to get a really tight roll, which is going to be the most important part of this process. So hopping over here, hi dog. What we're going to do, we're going to start with your end. I'm going to move it this way so you guys can kind of. So we're going to start with this end. We're going to take it, we're going to bunch it up as tight as we can. We're going to roll it a little bit to get it started. This is the most important part of tatami rolling. If you don't get a very tight end right there, you're not going to get a very tight mat, and you'll never be able to cut it. Once we have that bunched up, I'm going to take it, and I'm stepping on the end. I'm going to do the same to the other side. Once we have that rolled a little bit, I'm going to take it, try and continue that as tight as we can to get it moving. Now eventually you're going to run into the other half of your mat, and that's just going to roll inside of this one. And it's alright at this stage if you don't have it exactly perfect, lined up wise. What's most important is to keep it very tight. At this point, once you've rolled it into there, you can relax your grip a little bit so you don't wear yourself out. We start rolling it. If you've done it right, it should stay fairly round. You'll know if you start turning it like this, and you can hear it crunching a lot, that we haven't gotten that very tight. Once we get to this stage, like a foot here, you can grab any little bits of tatami. Chilling out. That's kind of what it looks like on these dried grass reeds. Don't eat them. Roll, 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 roll. Okay, we've got to our end. We want to squish it down. We're trying to fold that edge down as tight as we can. We want to step on one end. On the other side, we're going to grab ourselves a rubber band. Doesn't really matter what type. Some people like to use string. I think historically that's what they did. But these are a little bit easier in our modern context. Grab that super tight. Roll over the top. Put a double, maybe a triple roll this one. To get it there on the end of the mat. At this point, we can move to the other side. We'll grab that side. And this is going to stay intact now that we have that rubber band on there. I'm going to keep holding this tight. Right here. Same thing. Now, a lot of people will use either 5 or 6 rubber bands on their tatami mat, at least of your standard HEMA size that we use. So we're going to be using 5 today. The more rubber bands, the more cuts that you can get out of it. I like to challenge myself a little bit, so lesser bands equals a bit harder in theory. Okay, we've got one on each end. At this point, you can kind of relax. I'm going to put another one on. Move it down, and you want to evenly space them throughout the whole of the tatami mat. And one more. So you've got 5. And I'll show you the way to finish these off. Right down there. We're going to evenly space them. Now, once we have that all together, you'll see your ends are going to poke out just a little bit. I take it, just kind of run it down. My tatami mats aren't super even, so it might get a little bit weird. But you should feel it be fairly stiff. You can pound on it, and it's not disintegrating in your hands. If you look at the end there, you can see that we've got a nice, tight, concentric rings. There's no oval. I can squish it on each side. There's a little bit of give, so maybe my rolling wasn't super tight. But that would be a quality tatami rolling right there. So once we have it down there, we're going to pound it. We're going to get that nice and even. And our next objective is to soak this overnight. The reason that we soak these is when they're not soaked, the cells on the inside of the tatami won't expand enough to loosen it up. Back in the day, if you're talking about Japan, they used to make armor out of this stuff, but it'd be dried out and then lacquered. So look at tatami armor for kind of cheap armor, Japanese style. We need to soak these so that we have some ability to cut them. So the way that I like to soak them is I get my, one sec. So now that we have our tatami rolled, and it's nice and tight on each side, again, we're looking for those tight concentric rings in there. And one of the ways that you know that you've done a good job on this is you can take your pinky and try and push it into the roll. If you are unable to push your pinky in, you know it'll probably be tight enough to stick on your peg on the tatami stand. So I'm going to pound that in. This right here is the way that I like to do it. I have just a 4-inch section of ABS pipe. It's used for sewer lines, all kinds of plumbing applications, with a screw on top right here. So this allows me to soak it one at a time, and then I can store it inside. A lot of people you'll find are going to be allergic to tatami, like my wife. So try to do it in the bathtub, then you're going to have all kinds of problems. Now, the tatami needs to soak completely underwater overnight, at least 4 to 6 hours, but I usually like to do overnight just in case. And I like to start mine with hot water. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And while that's happening, we have an opportunity to practice our cutting. So now that our tatami mat is getting soaked, your job now is to pick your favorite sword. Now this sword right here is my favorite out of my whole collection. You're not going to be able to find swords that are really good for fencing with being the same as really good cutting swords. So pick a balance between the two of those, or even if you just have a sword, then pick one up and we'll see what happens. The thing that we're going to be practicing mostly with tatami is powering through these long arcs, especially at the higher ends of HEMA tournament cutting. Long cuts through multiple tatami mats is going to be one of the harder feats that we do. So what we're going to do, take your neutral stance, extend your point forward, and start making those cuts. And if they're good, you can hear that sword wind start coming off the end of your sword. If you can maintain that sword wind sound through the entirety of your cut, that will usually be powerful enough, assuming that your edge is good, that it will make it through most tatami mats. So practice that, do at least 4 or 5 cutting patterns of this, and then practice on some water bottles before you run and do tatami cutting right out of the gate. Because tatami mats are kind of expensive. It's about $300 per roll, and you can get like 15 tatami mats out of there. And if you want to be doing double rolls, then it gets very expensive. So it's a pretty expensive cutting medium, but it's one of the better cutting mediums to test pretty much everything that you'd need to for a sword cut. So practice on some water bottles. Make sure that you have at least the basics of cutting down before you try. Because one of the most depressing things that you can see is when you go to these tournaments and it's the first time somebody's picked up a sharp sword and they're going for those cuts and they're woo, ha, 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 thunk, and it sticks in the tatami mat. It's very, very depressing. So make sure you at least have the basics down, so that way you don't embarrass yourself, I think is the best way to say it. So let's go ahead and get these soaked here really quick. We're going to go over and we're going to see what it looks like when we're cutting it. Tatami mat. Bad.
Dragons rise at break of day. Hammers echo through the mist. Twilight whispers magic kiss. Beneath the mountains, ancient blood, flowing rivers, fire and mud. Myths awaken from their sleep, secrets old and buried deep. Feel the drums of battle roar, victories call forevermore. In our hearts we feel the beat, warriors stride on fearless feet. Eyes of amber blaze at night, sword and shield within our sight. Echoes calling across the glen, heroes born from tales of men.